Hi.
Hello.
Let's begin.
Do you have the clicker? Yeah.
Clicked it.
All right. So, that's really small. Hi, we're CW&T. My name's Taylor, and this is Che-Wei. We run a very small, just the two of us, art and design practice in Brooklyn, New York. Everything we do is from our house and our basement shop. And yeah.
So the title of our talk is Never Exit. I can't read any of my notes. Yeah, we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff today. How we mix love and work. That's sort of our core thing. And how about our principles and our struggles. We're going to tell you a little bit about how we do things and the things we do and a little bit about our history.
So Che-Wei and I met back in 2007 at a grad school called ITP. It's one of the most magical places on earth. ITP stands for Interactive Telecommunications Program. It's at NYU. People go there, all types of misfits from all walks of life, to make stuff and to make weird things. At the time, Che-Wei and I we met each other and we were making lots of weird things together. Next slide. This is one of the projects that we worked on. It was actually a work project that we did while we were in the program, but it was outside of the program. And we got to program huge screen, make a piece of custom software for the inaugural ball for Obama. And it was a really fun, crazy thing that we got to make. And those were good days. We ended up being together in the same thesis class. I think I actually copied his requests for which thesis advisor to get, because I was really late to fill out the form. So we luckily were together in the same class. This project here is called 3.16 billion cycles, and it's Che-Wei's thesis project while we were at ITP. You can think of this as an 100-year alarm clock. All of the gears that you see, they move. The main one is a motor that moves at 1 cycle per second. Then there's a minute one, an hour one, day, month, decade, year, decade, and then eventually a century, which is the big ring, outer ring. And this piece is about 4 feet high. And after 100 years, the ring falls, and 100 years has passed. And this project is called 8-Light ASCII Display Terminal. And you can think of it as a really simple computer display. This was my thesis project while we were in class together. So when you type on a regular keyboard, whatever you're typing appears in binary ASCII in 8 fluorescent tube lights.
So yes, we mix love with work. We do everything together. We cook together, eat together, we play, work, everything. And our house is built that way too. So like our kitchen counter is our conference table, and our laundry room is our workshop. And yeah, it's not only the way we work, but we choose to work with this way. And I think it's from a practical standpoint, it's actually very good because we get stuff done really quickly. And so like bad ideas get shut down really quickly without being polite. She just says no. And then I say okay. And good ideas bubble up really quickly. So in a lot of ways, I think we're like a very, very efficient package. When we graduated ITP, we opened a studio. We were pretty naive about it, and we're like, I think if we get a studio space, people might take us seriously. So we spent $400 a month on a studio space in New York, which is pretty cheap for New York prices. And we tried to establish ourselves. And so we moved into this studio called BA 501 in Greenpoint in this giant industrial building. And BA stands for bathroom alcove. It's like a really fancy bathroom alcove. Had windows facing west so we could watch the sunset. But it also meant that the sun would basically bake us every afternoon from 3 p.m. onwards. So that's why it was so cheap.
Those are our makeshift curtains, by the way. Those little
Right,
papers
yeah,
on the...
those are curtains. So, we opened the studio, and like any young studio, we're like, we actually have to feed ourselves. So in the beginning, we were taking every single job that came in. So every website design job that we could get, we would do. And we weren't picky about what we'd do. So there's a lot of boring stuff. But eventually, we were fortunate enough to get one big job every year that paid for all our messing around for the rest of the year. And for some reason, we'd end up doing these animal-related projects, like big interactive screens for SeaWorld. We also built a orangutan-human interaction game for the Indianapolis Zoo. So, we do these big projects, and then for the rest of the year, we get to mess around and just make whatever we want.
So the making part, this project is called Blockhead STEM Integrated Brake. And at the time, we were just building bicycles. It was summer, and we couldn't find a bike stem that we really liked. So that was the one that we built for ourselves. And it's just a really simple bike stem with a brake lever. That being said, those things never made us any money. I'm going to give this baby to my mom right now.
I'll take over. So this is Circle Hook Light. Bye. That's Taylor's mom.
I'm actually from Montreal, so it's really nice to be back here. But yeah, and very helpful to have free babysitting. Because Che-Wei and I normally, we just take turns watching our kids. So they're here with us often. So it's nice to have a hand. You talked about Circle Hook Light is a very simple light fixture for a standard fluorescent circle line bulb. It works, the switch, you can think about it like you're hanging up a coat. So to turn on the light, you just hook up the light onto the fixture. To turn it off, you can rotate it and take it off.
And this is a penny python recumbent bike. You've probably never seen this before because there's only one of these in the world. It's like a penny farthing bike, so there's no chain or gears, and it's really hard to ride. And so that's why we're not making any more of these. We also really love writing software, so we've made a bunch of iOS apps just for fun because they don't make any money. So this is like a music sequencer that we built to make beats, and yeah, it's just really fun to make stuff like that. Oh, yeah. So this is also fun. We were asked to build these wearable light fixtures that you could walk around in for a runway show. So these are battery-powered fluorescent lights that you could wear like a helmet and walk around. And we walked around New York City like this for a night, which was fun.
Yeah, so conflict. At the time when we were starting up, the biggest conflict really was figuring out how to balance the projects, the work that we really loved doing, and client work, which took up a lot of time, but also a lot of our mental energy. I mean, it was hard to work on things that you loved working on when you'd spend like 4 hours a day on conference calls, speaking to, execs for some of the bigger projects, which we obviously had to take because we had to support ourselves. So that was always a struggle at the beginning.
Yeah, so we made all these fun but non-money-making projects. But one day, we launched a project on Kickstarter, which I assume all of you know.
Know what Kickstarter is.
Yeah, and so we had this pen that we made for ourselves. We literally made 2 of them because we're like, nobody wants this silly pen. I think I wanted one, Taylor wanted one, so we made 2 of them. But then our friends are like, you should maybe try Kickstarter, just like because you have nothing to lose. So we put it on Kickstarter. So this is 2011. We had 2 prototypes. We were super naive about manufacturing. We thought we knew how that worked. And so we were trying to raise $2,500 to cover tooling costs, which is what the guy in China said. He's like, $2,500, you're good to go. So we're like, okay, let's raise $2,500. and we tried, we sent it to 50 of our friends to be like, hey, if you guys fund this, we could do this. And instead, we got $280,000+ and over 4,000 people. And so that, just like completely flipped our studio model. And so, yeah, that was insane.
Yeah. So we ended up having to place a purchase order for 6,000 of these things, which we quickly learned making 6,000 of something is way more difficult than making 2 or even 100. So it took 2 years, and we went through 3 manufacturers. This video that you see here, we ended up having to receive shipments, quality control every single piece, make sure every pen fit into every sleeve, wash all the parts because a lot of them smelled of machine oil. It was really hard, and it was really stressful. So that was our last time attempting to make something overseas. I think the second half of that purchase order we ended up making with a machine shop in Vermont, who we now work with on all of our metal goods. But this is where we were back then, and it was really difficult. But we learned a lot.
So yeah, Kickstarter totally changed our lives. So there's like everything we did before Kickstarter, and then we had this big Kickstarter campaign, and then we're like, oh, maybe all those side projects that we'd been working on that didn't make money, maybe if we try to launch some of those, maybe some of those will become really good money-making projects. So we stopped taking client work. We're just like, we don't need you guys to pay us anymore. What do you want?
I'm hungry.
He's hungry. Can you ask Skipper for food? So yeah, we got really picky about the things we design and the people that we work for. So we got to do things like design this house in Tokyo for fun.
I guess these days we still continue to do projects on our own, projects that we really love and that we're interested in. It's not so much about, we do things that we love, and we also do things like if somebody comes to us and we like their project, or if they're just a good friend and they're like, we need help doing this really weird thing, and we only have like 12 hours. We like helping people with weird things like that too.
Yeah, we're really spoiled. But I'm going to talk about more stuff that we're so spoiled. So we make even more weird stuff. So, one of the things that we try to do is like make weird things, and we make as weird of a thing as possible. Oftentimes they don't have a market. Oftentimes we don't even know if people want it. And some people call that research. And it's really expensive to do research on things that people don't want. And in our world, that comes in the form of like grants, art residencies, or research labs. And so over the past bunch of years, we've been doing art residencies and getting grants and going to labs to make weird stuff like this. So for example, last year at Pier 9 in San Francisco, we had access to some crazy industrial machines that we don't normally have access to, like CNC mills, lathes, really expensive 3D printers, big water jets. And so this is a handheld plastic melting extruder. It's like a giant 3D doodler, basically. Completely built from scratch. But now this gun lives on a robot arm at Pratt Institute, where it's properly extruding big things.
Pratt is also where Che-Wei teaches architecture, for those of you that don't know that. And this is another piece that was made at Pier 9. You can think of it, it's a giant functional electronic circuit board. The traces were cut on a water jet, and they were inlaid into a piece of CNC machined acrylic. And this is a video of it being assembled. It's very satisfying to work at a scale like that with very high precision.
So also from Pier 9, so Pier 9 is, it's like an artist residency that Autodesk funds. And so we got to play around with some really fancy Autodesk software that's not out there yet. And this is something I built in Dreamcatcher. It's a generative design software. So what it does is you basically describe the forces that you want the design to respond to, and then the computer just generates a design out of thin air. And as a designer, you're less of like a CAD specialist. You're more like a conductor or director, sort of describing what you want the computer to do, and then it generates a solution, and then you just pick the ones that you think look the best or perform the best. So this is generating different bike stems. So here's a metal 3D printed final version of a bike stem. And so what we're trying to do with this project is sort of the opposite of that first bike stem you saw. We're trying to make the lightest bike stem on the market. So with a little bit more optimization and access to 3D printing titanium machines, which are out there but really expensive, we're going to try to do that.
And this project, this is a time capsule, a 25-ish year time capsule, where the mechanism that opens the time. So what happens is you get this thing, put all your stuff in, shut it, and when it's shut, you can't open it by yourself. But there's a piece of pitch, which is a highly viscous substance. It comes from trees. So it starts off as a rock, but it's actually liquid, and it will drip over time. And when enough of this pitch drips, it will unlock the mechanism that keeps this time capsule shut, and you'll be able to open it. So it's a really fancy. Che-Wei designed this locking mechanism. And machined it and prototyped it while we were at this art residency. It's really cool.
So other places we spent other people's money doing stuff. We were at MIT Media Lab, where they have way too much money. So we made all kinds of weird stuff, sometimes involving neuroscience, microfluidics, sometimes. We also did some really fancy electronic stuff there.
Sometimes stuff with plaster.
Yeah, so this is it's called RotoJam. It's a roto-molding jam-based mold machine. It'll make sense in the next slide. So this is what it looks like when you demold from this machine. So it uses jamming, which is like when you take a balloon, fill it with some kind of media, in this case rice, and then harden it by pulling a vacuum, and then you do like a thin shell cast in it, and then you spin it around like a roto-molding machine, and then you get these bowls that are stiffened because of the texture on it, and then you put stuff in it.
And this piece also was a project where these are tiny radios that are meant for people at parties. So the DJ at a party, instead of playing the music through a conventional PA, has access to all these pirate radios that are attached to people, tuned to 1 or 2 stations. So the music gets played, distributed amongst everybody on the dance floor at a party.
And we also built fancy electronics like this. So, one amazing thing about MIT is that it's packed with engineering wizards, which we're not. And so we get to just learn from everybody around us. So we got to build stuff like this. This is like a custom-built smartwatch, but dedicated to make you more aware of time passing. So it's like the opposite of, some people say they don't wear watches because they don't want to be tied down to time. This is the exact opposite of that. And my hypothesis around why you'd want to wear this watch is to make you less stressed about time. It's sort of the relationships we have with space and maps. So you look at a map to understand space more, so why not have a device that helps you understand time more so you can navigate time better?
Yeah. And so this project is called Earth Clock, and it is a clock where the digits of the clock are zooming in of places on Earth that look like numbers. So this clock is made, there's a free screensaver of this if anybody wants to go and get it on our website. But we also have a physical version of it that we live with in our own space. And yeah, there's over 1,000 hand-picked locations that are just lat-long coordinates in a database that people have gone to the website and helped crowdsource all of these spots that look like numbers. So we make lots and lots of things, and that part kind of comes to us pretty easily and naturally, but the hard part for us is always launching and figuring out when to launch and trying to remember to launch. So a lot of the time we work in a little bubble, and we need to constantly be putting things out in the world, and that's something that we try to do as much as possible. And the next part of the presentation will talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, we love Kickstarter. We've launched 6 projects on Kickstarter now over the last 6 years. It's really nice because we use it as a platform to put out ideas. It's not really like a advertising platform for us, even though that's sort of how it works now. And in that way, it's changed a lot since the beginning. I think we try to treat it as much as possible as a place where, like, I don't know if this idea is actually something that people are willing to put money behind. And so we just put it out there, and if people back it, great. If people don't, then it's actually also good, because then we know not to continue to pursue that idea. But luckily, so far, all 6 of our campaigns have been funded. So a lot of people ask us, how do you launch a successful Kickstarter campaign? And we don't really have an answer for that. The way we do it, we just do it. we don't actually spend a lot of time, making fancy videos. We just put an idea out there. We just make a video enough to present an idea. We put it out there, and then if it happens, great. If it doesn't, that's also fine, because we're going to keep doing weirder and weirder stuff.
Yeah, we're trying to do things faster and scrappier, but to be honest, we do put a lot of time into our Kickstarter pages and videos. We'll go through some of the projects next, and some of them we thought were going to be really big campaigns, and we invested a lot of time and energy in presenting them. But then it was that not that many people actually want that thing, and it was sad, but it's fine. So this is the first campaign that we launched after Pen Type A, and it's called Pen Type B. And it's kind of weird that we are known as pen people, because we're really not pen people. We just like very high precision machine objects, which our pens happen to be. But we waited actually 4 years to launch this project. Part of the reason we waited so long is because we were at the MIT Media Lab, and we weren't allowed to launch anything then. But more importantly, so much went wrong in our first campaign that we wanted to really make sure we had manufacturing locked down for the second one. And we did, even though there was a big failure with this campaign when it shipped. But we luckily were able to resolve that pretty seamlessly.
So for our third campaign, we made a poster. It's a poster that helps you understand your body as a tool for measuring things. So the way you use this poster is you measure your body, and then you scribble in that measurement into the poster. So then it'll help you memorize that measurement, so you can walk around measuring things with your body. And it's super useful. We use it.
And this is a project we launched this past January on Kickstarter. They made an initiative called Make 100 as a way to sort of get people to start making things early on in the year. And when we saw this, we were like, okay, this is actually kind of a cool thing. There's very low risk. It's a fun project. So we made this thing called 100 dropped pendant lamps. And you can go to the next slide. And they're 100 3D printed. Each one is custom, and each one is different lamps. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And this is a project called Key Wrangler. It's a project that we started a long time ago, maybe 3 years ago. And we just did it for ourselves. There were actually a bunch of friends around us designing key holders around us, and we're like, I think we can do that too. And so we were planning to just make 2 of these for ourselves, but after going through so many iterations just for fun, I think we actually landed on a really good key holding solution. So we launched a Kickstarter campaign to try to raise some money to make more than just 2 of these. And I think, it is one of the most useful things we've launched, and it's nice to hold your keys. It just holds your keys.
And this project is this one's live right now. It's a titanium pen type B. And the reason why we made this it's actually one of the most requested things from all of our backers ever is make this thing in titanium. And it was also something that we wanted to do. But recently, Kickstarter, they launched a Kickstarter Gold initiative, which they invited 60 or so repeat creators to relaunch some past project with a twist. So this was an amazing excuse for us to do this, which we would have never had. And we're super honored and thankful to Kickstarter for letting us do this thing.
Yeah, they're so nice to us. And right now, we're working on a new project that we're hoping to launch sometime in the future, maybe a few months, maybe a year. It's a single-use stopwatch. It's maybe the weirdest project we'll ever turn into a product so far. And the basic idea is it's a stopwatch that has a start button or some way of starting, and then it never stops from that point on. And the idea is to use this as a way to mark a moment in time. We call them time meridians. It's like a moment in time for where you compare all past and future events. And so we're hoping to, sell these in packs, so like in a pair or in a pack. So you could, as a group, start a bunch of stopwatches together, and from that point on, each one of you will walk away with one of these devices that tells you exactly how many days, hours, and minutes it's been since that moment in time. And so, yeah, there's a lot of hard problems to solve in this. We want this device to last, more than 10 years, which is a pretty difficult thing to do with electronics. But, I think we'll solve it, and then hopefully we'll launch it.
So these two guys, which you guys saw before, these are our two greatest but least lucrative creations. Yeah, the littlest one is just 2 months old, so a lot of the time we spend these days it's really hard to get work done. We sent these slides this morning, and we're sorry for doing that. But yeah, these days our schedule looks like we pretty much have 4 hours within the day of possibility of getting work done when this guy's at summer camp, and maybe during some of that the other one is going to be sleeping. So we work when that is all happening. Or well, yeah.
So it's a little bit hard to read, but every few years we do this little practice where we make 2 pie charts for ourselves. One pie shows us our reality. It's like, this is where all our time is going. And then we make another pie chart that's like, this is how we'd like to spend our time. And normally, we just drew these last night, and we realized it's actually not doing us any good right now because these 2 babies take up all our time. And so reality and ideal is just like not even, it's not in the same world. But normally, it's a really good practice because you can't, time is finite, and if you're just like consciously setting aside time for certain things, to see that in a circle where like this is how I divide my day, and then you try to set another one that's like, this is how I want to divide my day. It's really interesting to see those differences, but it didn't work for us last night.
Oh. Yeah. So really quickly, we may not play this whole thing, but a couple weeks ago, Snapchat invited us to Shopify invited us to take over their Snapchat account for the day, and we did a little day in the life. It was our first time using Snapchat, so it was really hard for us. But this is actually a very accurate depiction of our life.
Bacon. Eggs.
So we eat breakfast.
Cow. Tree. Walking to school.
We take Pat to school.
Okay, we have a sleeping baby.
We get the baby to sleep.
Now we have to work.
Baby. Oh, rainbow moved. Come back. Every day.
That's our shop. We're always cleaning it.
Yeah, it requires a lot of maintenance.
Here's a quick tour of our shop. Our laundry machines, our bikes, table full of garbage, all our screws, some supplies, our CNC mill, a little workstation, little electronics bench filled with crap, 3D printers, our homemade laser saw. Got a machine, this thing to fit in this thing.
Let's move forward. All right, we're gonna keep moving. What was I supposed to say? Yeah, so... right, so we're coming to the end. So, as a studio, there's a bunch of principles that we've held in our heads. Some are conscious, some are unconscious. And so we tried to nail these down to present today. So here they are.
Yeah. So the first one, it's just the two of us. And growing bigger than that means more mouths to feed, more responsibility of work to take on and projects, which is pretty stressful. Two people can get things done pretty efficiently these days, especially with all of the available prototyping tools and software that's out there and available to virtually everybody at very little cost. And so we're really lucky to live in that time. And two people can actually get a lot done.
This is love over money. We've sort of held this really close since we started. Obviously we make money because we have to feed ourselves, but whenever it comes to that choice of like, are we going to do this project or not? If there's no love in it, we basically won't do it. It doesn't matter how much money is involved. And it might come in the form of like the person that we work with is someone we love, or it might be that we love that work, but we'll never do something just for money. And so far, that's worked out pretty well.
So we have no secrets. We share everything, both with ourselves and with our followers. It's important to us to share everything, mostly because, I think transparency is something that's really important within all the things that we make also. We like the idea, and ever since the beginning we've liked the idea that the things that we make reveal both the thought of how they were conceived, but also reveal how they were made. Because when somebody owns something, it's really nice I feel like the ownership of it actually increases when they have an understanding of where it came from. And that's important for us.
Buy lots of lottery tickets. We're not saying you should gamble, but launching products or projects often feels like rolling dice. The payoff often doesn't equal how much time you put into it. So the way we approach our work, we're constantly trying new things, testing out new projects to see if things stick. And sometimes it'll be something that we work on for like a day, and sometimes it'll be things that we work on for years before we launch it. But we're just always trying to buy lottery tickets.
So we're not at all attached to any particular medium or way of working or process. We pretty much just make whatever it is we want to make at that time. So if we want to make an iPhone app, we'll figure out how to code it in Objective-C. If we want to do some electronics project that makes something last for a really long time, we'll figure out how to make that happen. And again, like we were saying before, right now we live in a time where we have access to all of those resources, whether it's online or through networks of people, and that's wonderful.
The proof is in the prototype. We are adamantly anti-rendering because rendering is like crack. If you like render a product, it almost feels like you've already finished that product, and then when you finally get around to making the thing, you're like it's not that good anymore. The high's not that good. So we're always just like making the thing. We'll go from concept to proof of concept in a few hours, and so that's really the way we set up our laundry room workshop. Is like it's as friction-free as possible. And so if we want to 3D print something, we can do that immediately, or we have a laser cutter to cut stuff, or a mill to mill things.
So if you're going to bother making something, make it properly. There's right tools for specific things. And also a big thing that we learned very early on with our pen type A was it costs obviously more money to make something in America than it does right now in China, which is we're trying to save money on making something by working in China. But the amount of stress that it caused us and the amount of headaches and like wrinkles and hair loss and just like general well-being is actually not worth that. There's no money that's worth that. So the things that we make are actually extremely expensive to make, and we're okay with that because yeah, they're made properly, and we don't have to deal with as much of the stress that we would otherwise. And those are important choices, I think, that we've made early on.
Make it last. We really think everything should be over-engineered. That's the way we make things. It works better, it lasts longer, it feels better often, and so we're kind of almost anti-value engineering. Obviously, there is a place for value engineer, but oftentimes it's very short-sighted. And so we when we look at products, we like products that last forever, so we also try to do the same. So everything we make is over-engineered, designed, manufactured, and built to last forever.
So our business, we found, works the best when people know that there's two humans and two humans only that are behind it. So we actually put a lot of work into making sure that we share a lot and, share pictures of all the nitty-gritty, because it's important that people understand that there's two people behind what we do. And when we get customer service emails, for example, it's nice when somebody doesn't think that they're talking to a big company, because it's us who's answering them, and it's a much more amicable, friendly tone always. And it's nicer to write those emails to those people as opposed to being yelled at thinking that somebody's talking to a big company.
And finally, we have no idea what we're doing. We're just two kids, just trying to make stuff. So that's it. That's all we have to say.
Thank
Bye.
you.